Editor Silo chiming in really quickly just to address that. Yes, I understand that while I was putting this video together, the Europass has been a thing that Jagex has announced and the Yak Track no longer exists. However, this is a rework of a video I made all the way back in December, and honestly a lot of the things I say here still apply to Europass, so let's all collectively pretend that Jagex hasn't announced Europass yet. Yak Track was an update released in 2019 and it's basically Jagex's attempt at a battle pass. Essentially, battle passes are a limited time events where you are given a set of tasks and every time you complete a task you contribute to a certain progress, and after you unlock certain milestones you get rewards, usually cosmetic rewards. Now, before I actually get into the Yak Track itself, I think that we need to address one question, which is, should it be permanent? Ultimately, they have consistently released it every 3 months, they have 50 days for it to complete, but they release it every 3 months, and they release for a year, which means that essentially the Yak Track is around all year round, and honestly, why not? If you're already investing this amount of time into it, at least give players more time to be able to complete it, so I would say that yes, you should make it permanent. Now, is the Yak Track any good? And well, it depends. For the most part, I don't think that it's really all that good, at least not in its current state. Although I do think there is a lot of potential to it, especially because I think that a lot of times when players get into the game, they might feel a bit paralyzed with all of the things that they have to do or the things that they can do and feel a bit lost, so having a system that is a bit more broken down or a bit more specific than paths can actually be a good tool to have in the game, and honestly giving extra rewards to those players for doing that, or for the players that already play the game, I'm not necessarily against it. And each Yak Track also is thematic. A lot of its rewards are thematic to the latest, biggest updates, so usually you can actually tie those updates into the Yak Track and actually have people be more willing to try the new updates. So there is a lot of potential. So now that we understand all of that, let's actually talk about the problems that the Yak Track has, and it has a couple to say the least. First of all, the Yak Track is incredibly stagnant. Even though it has been around for almost 4 years at this point, there really hasn't been any evolution on it. There's been very little change, or almost any of the problems have been actually addressed. On top of that, there's not enough variety in the tasks. Over time, I just expected more tasks to come into the game, or at least more varied tasks, and yet, since skill and kill tasks actually now take 1 slot, you really only have skill and kill, you have the XP tasks, or you have do a number of actions in a specific skill. But because again, the skill and kill tasks actually take 1 task, you only have that, or you have either XP or a number, depending on which task it is, from 1 single skill, so really you don't actually even have that much of a choice. On top of all of that, it's also extremely grindy. Some people actually figured out that if you do skill and kill all throughout, you will take over 100 hours to complete the 50 steps, which is just insane. Ultimately, especially because of the skill and kill tasks, all of the tasks actually scale, which makes it even harder to actually get through the tasks, as the later tasks will require you to do, like, for example, elder logs, which means that the skill and kill tasks end up being faster even though they are literally time locked. The Yak Track also gives you extra XP for completing tasks. These last Yak Tracks have been giving you 15% bonus XP for the remainder of the Yak Track in every skill. This essentially just encourages players to actually finish the track just to get 15 bonus XP in all of their activities in game, which really just encourages FOMO, or fear of missing out, which is not what these types of side systems should actually have. This, coupled with the fact that you have skips that you can buy through bonds, just encourages people to actually spend GP or spend IRL money buying bonds to get over with the track as fast as they can and enjoy the XP bonus as fast or as much as they can, which essentially just transforms a side piece of content not only into a FOMO thing, but also a thing where people essentially is more of a focal monetization point rather than just something that it's in the game as a system. On top of all of that, you're also not really able to buy older cosmetics if you miss them. This is actually rectified in this Yak Track where you have Yak coins. Essentially, Yak coins are earned through completing specific tasks, and if you complete the repeatable 50th task, although they really don't actually consistently drop that much, usually the last task actually takes a lot longer to do, which means that if you miss any cosmetics, if you want to rebind them back, you will just have to spend way bigger of a grind than the players that simply did the track in the first place. Not to mention that when the track is over, these coins are removed anyway. There's also a pretty big problem with cosmetic bloat in the game. Essentially every track at 3 mounts has anywhere between 30 to 40 cosmetics each, which is a lot of cosmetics, and this essentially just ends up devaluing cosmetics. Some cosmetics actually end up ruining the visual cohesion that RuneScape has, because I mean it's just kind of hard to come up with a lot of cosmetics all the time, and ultimately it just encourages hoarding as opposed of actually encouraging people to mess with or value their cosmetics, because a lot of people don't actually care about the cosmetics themselves, they care about just owning them and having them in the game from a completionist perspective, not a fashionscape one. Another problem that the Yak Track has, and the tasks more specifically have, is that oftentimes they are badly tracked. Basically what I want to mean by this is that, for example, if you are doing a runecraft task and the task is getting 100k XP in runecrafting, the bonus XP or even the items that actually give extra items, like for example if you need to harvest X amount of herbs, you have items that give you extra herbs, those simply do not count for the progress of the task. The problem with this is that there are certain things in the game that just give you bonus XP. One of them is, for example, the Abyss. So if you craft runes through the Abyss, you will get a flat bonus XP from the Abyss, right, to encourage people to actually craft runes as opposed of using rune span. But that doesn't actually count. So finally, let's actually talk about the solutions. The first one should simply be to replace the skill and kill tasks with an overall point system of being logged in. This has two benefits. Number one, it frees up a task slot, and number two, it also favors the people that simply log in to talk with other people or be social. The current skill and kill tasks actually have you earn XP, that's the only way of earning points. With an overall point system where you can just get points by being in the game, you can actually do whatever activity you want, like hanging out with friends or, you know, sorting out your fashionscape or whatever you want, without necessarily being forced to feel like you need to earn XP in order to still get access to the rewards. I would also expand the current task set to 2 task sets, one that is unrelated to the latest updates, and another one that is actually related to the latest update. So you have a task set that simply tells you to go to certain activities, while the other tells you to go to certain activities specifically related to, in this case, Fort for Entry or the Wilderness. I would also like to have a wide variety of tasks as a whole. People in the community tend to do bingos, and there's a lot of tasks in them, so really I don't see why Jagex can't come up with different tasks with some creativity behind them to actually have people participate in different aspects of the game and do so differently with different approaches and perspectives. Also, the points of the tasks should be scaled instead of the tasks themselves, so rather than requiring you to only count magic logs for you to actually progress through the task, you actually allow every log to be essentially counted to the task, but you actually make it so normal logs are, for example, worth 1 point of progress, while elder logs are worth 8, for example. These would essentially have people be a bit more flexible in the way they approach content, and it would also allow low-level people that just got into the game, to also get into the content that is being done. Next up, I actually would make some tasks to be more randomized between players as opposed to being set. These would actually be extremely beneficial towards the last task, which is usually the repeatable one, which tends to already have a lot of weighting behind it. So if this task every time you complete it was, you know, random, so you would have a different thing to do every time, it would keep the track going for longer for the people that wanted to use it sort of as a guide, while also not, you know, waiting so much that people essentially just feel like they have to grind for 5 hours just to complete it once. Also, I would give more rewards tailored to like extra lamps and whatnot for the people that want to go above and beyond in earning extra rewards. reducing the amount of cosmetics, so, cosmetics are overall more memorable and you actually do care about which ones you get, as opposed to just bloating the game with useless cosmetics that most people don't actually want. This would also make it easier for people to reobtain them if they ever miss them. Add a way to reobtain cosmetics that you missed from previous tasks, either by just giving Yak tokens by playing the game or giving Yak tokens in every single task, or even better to just make them earnable by completing the current version of the track. In old school, for example, with the Halloween event coming in October, if this is the first time you're playing the game, and the game has been released for 10 years, you will actually get every single reward from previous Halloween events. You won't be able to do the quests again, but you'll get all of the rewards from all of them. I don't see why Yak Track can't work exactly the same way. And ultimately, I would just remove the 15% XP bonus or any other bonus types of that these tracks might actually come up with. Ultimately, it just promotes FOMO and it just pushes this system to be a worse system overall, because people actually focus much more on completing it to feel like they're not missing out on the extra XP, as opposed to just actually enjoying the system for what it is. And it makes Jagex just essentially focus on the wrong parts of the system, because the system can be good, but it can also be extremely bad if you focus on the negatives. But yeah, that's pretty much it.